The young man merely glanced up at the vast expanse of the sky above him, and as a result he became completely blind for a full decade. From that unfortunate day forward, he was widely regarded by others as if he were mentally ill. He claimed to have seen a divine being residing on the surface of the moon. A decade ago precisely, Lin Kai was enjoying the serene night view from the rooftop of his dwelling, when he suddenly witnessed an angel, shimmering with a magnificent golden radiance, appearing before him. Ever since then, his eyes remained stubbornly shut, seemingly unable to open ever again. Furthermore, every single night that followed this incident, he consistently dreamt of a foreboding and eerie psychiatric hospital. He sensed an inexplicable, profound connection between himself and this mysterious mental institution. But no matter how persistently he knocked on its imposing doors, there was never any response. This relentless torment, day after day, left Lin Kai feeling utterly exhausted both physically and mentally. When he finally confided all these strange experiences to his consulting psychologist, the doctor, however, simply concluded that he was suffering from a mental illness. Upon returning home, he chose not to disclose the doctor's alarming diagnosis to his beloved family members, as he had been tragically orphaned from a very young age, and it was his kind aunt and younger brother who had lovingly raised him. During dinner, his aunt affectionately comforted him, assuring him that even if his eyesight could never truly recover, they would continue to care for him for the rest of his life. To alleviate his family's growing concerns, he confidently stated that his eyes were now capable of perceiving light, a significant improvement, and he would soon be able to function just like any other ordinary person. In reality, however, he had tried every conceivable method, yet he still could not manage to open his eyes. Starting approximately 5 years ago, he had developed the ability to sense subtle changes in his immediate surroundings. As time steadily progressed, this sensory range expanded from just a few centimeters initially to a remarkable 10 meters currently. Whenever he would raise his hand to try and sense the vast sky above, he would invariably hear the voice of that celestial angel resonating clearly in his ears, asking, "Are you still watching me?" At the very same moment, deep within a secluded alleyway somewhere, several individuals dressed in red garments were relentlessly hunting two monstrous creatures. The leading woman spoke into her walkie-talkie instructing, "Old Zhao, the time is now." On the other end, Old Zhao confidently confirmed, "Understood, the 3 warning signs are already perfectly in position." Immediately afterward, Old Zhao made a distinct hand gesture, and a vibrant red energy began to surge powerfully from his palm. As he exclaimed, "Continue." In an instant, a brilliant crimson pillar of light shot up, piercing directly towards the heavens, converging with 2 identical streams of light. As these magnificent light pillars synchronized with each other, soon after, a vast red restricted zone formed, effectively trapping the 2 terrifying monsters within its confines. Everyone present slowly took off their hats in unison. As the decisive cleanup operation officially commenced, it was then revealed that, precisely 100 years prior, a mysterious dense fog had suddenly emerged, enveloping the human world in a highly toxic mist. And within a mere 2.5 hours, it had alarmingly consumed half of Earth's total land area. Humanity found it utterly impossible to explore or investigate the areas enveloped by this dense mist, and it remained unknown whether any survivors still existed within it. However, in September of the year 1922, humanity made a startling discovery in the Mariana Trench, an enormous, colossal dragon soaring majestically through the air. It was later identified and recognized as the Dragon of Chaos, the mighty Leviathan. With this groundbreaking first encounter of a mythological creature by humanity, its undeniable existence completely revolutionized and overturned all of humanity's previously held perceptions. Not long after that pivotal event, a mysterious resurgence began, as ancient deities from beyond the known world reappeared, manifesting themselves once more on Earth, and a myriad of creatures from diverse myths and legends started to emerge. Even within the technologically advanced and bustling cities, these beings ruthlessly and wantonly slaughtered the inhabitants of Haxia, and disturbingly the external deities not only refused to offer any assistance, but instead actively participated in the carnage themselves. Concurrently, during this tumultuous period, it was observed that children born after the appearance of the mysterious fog had a discernible probability of awakening extraordinary abilities, and these unique powers were subsequently designated by humanity as a forbidden zones. As the number of these empowered individuals continued to grow, humans possessing these remarkable special powers formed a formidable organization known as the Huaxia Night Watchmen, and together, they bravely defended against the relentless invasions of both external deities and monstrous creatures. The following day, a primary hunter named Hong Ying, wielding a long spear, was freely harvesting prey in a hunting ground near a sewer entrance, just as he was musing to himself that he could once again finish work earlier than expected. A formidable ghost-faced king abruptly appeared directly behind him, and with a single devastating strike, it pierced right through his chest. He desperately used the very last ounce of his remaining strength to report the dire situation into his walkie-talkie. Concurrently, at the other end of the sewer entrance, Lin Kai and his classmates were walking home from school and happened to pass by this very spot, when they suddenly caught the unmistakable stench of a decaying corpse. One particularly competitive classmate immediately suggested they venture inside to investigate further, but just as he cautiously switched on his flashlight, what horrifyingly came into their view was a grotesque monster, actively devouring the body of a woman with gruesome intent. A sight that terrified them so profoundly they immediately scattered and fled in panic. At that moment, The monster also became aware of their presence and began to relentlessly pursue them. As it was about to catch up to one of the female students, she immediately tossed her school bag away from herself, hoping to lighten her load and increase her speed, completely disregarding Lin Kai, who was struggling to keep up behind her. Fortunately, Lin Kai's reactions were incredibly swift, and he simultaneously ducked his head down, thereby narrowly avoiding the thrown bag. Just as the girl was on the verge of escaping the confines of the sewer system, another grotesque monster suddenly emerged from the shadows, and viciously bit down hard on her. Lin Kai was so utterly terrified that he froze momentarily in shock. And right there on the spot, he did not anticipate the monster behind him launching a direct attack, which sent him flying several meters away with a powerful slap. Suddenly, yet another terrifying monster materialized directly above his head. With absolutely nowhere left to retreat at this critical moment, he gritted his teeth in sheer, burning hatred and despair. He utterly resented the heavens above for being so incredibly unfair and unjust towards him throughout his life. After being wrongly perceived as mentally ill for so many long years, and having just recently begun to embrace a new, hopeful chapter in his original form, it seemed fate was now determined to drag him back into the depths of hell. As he let out a furious, defiant roar, two brilliant rays of golden light vividly flashed from his eyes. Simultaneously, far away, orbiting majestically on the moon, the Archangel Gabriel was calmly observing the unfolding events, carefully watching everything that was transpiring with Lin Kai. At this very moment, he was completely enveloped in an immense, radiant golden light, and the golden glow in his eyes grew increasingly brilliant and intense, until suddenly, a powerful pillar of golden light shot directly upwards into the sky. At the same time, on the other side, Old Zhou had now reached Hong Ying's side and was assessing the situation. The good news was that Hong Ying, after receiving prompt medical attention, had successfully moved out of immediate life-threatening danger. The bad news, however, was that one ghost-faced king, along with 3 other ghost-faced beings, had managed to escape into the dense old urban district, just as Old Zhou prepared to set off in pursuit of them. A brilliant flash of golden light suddenly illuminated directly before his eyes. He was absolutely dumbfounded by the sight, wondering did something go wrong with the Forbidden Zone power. The energy level even approached the 6th realm, the Clane state. He then immediately accelerated his pace, heading directly towards the source of the golden light. Meanwhile, at the Night Watchman's central headquarters, a certain man was intently observing Lin Kai through the surveillance monitors, and he quietly murmured in deep contemplation. This doesn't appear to be a human's Forbidden Zone power at all, you know. Rather, it bears a striking resemblance to the divine power of the Archangel. Indeed, it was more like Lin Kai was continuously radiating the magnificent divine power of a seraphim, and his eyes had at long last truly regained their sight. However, despite all these remarkable developments, this extraordinary transformation did not deter the ghost-faced beings from their relentless assault. They all simultaneously lunged forward, launching a ferocious attack towards Lin Kai with unified force. But these seemingly swift attacks appeared incredibly slow to his newly awakened eyes, and he effortlessly twisted his body, gracefully evading the ghost-faced being's onslaught with ease. It wasn't just his incredibly heightened reaction speed that had improved, but even his sensory range had remarkably doubled in extent. Within this newly expanded 20-meter radius, he could now perfectly perceive and comprehend everything that transpired. Facing a ghost-faced being that furiously lunged at him from one side, he remained utterly fearless, as if possessing the serene heart of an angel, showing not the slightest trace of fear. His walking stick spun rapidly in his grip with newfound agility, and then he powerfully thrust it forward, decisively piercing directly through the ghost-faced being's head. At that very moment, he experienced a sudden, intense wave of dizziness in his head, and immediately thereafter his body became completely paralyzed and unable to move, leaving the 2 remaining ghost-faced beings. Seeing this opportunity, they immediately launched a coordinated assault directly towards him. Just at this incredibly critical and perilous moment, Old Zhou appeared precisely on time, effectively blocking their incoming attacks with skill, and with a swift, decisive swing of his blade, he instantly sliced the ghost-faced being into 2 halves. After expertly dispatching the threat, Old Zhou calmly and casually remarked, "Wasn't that absolutely incredibly cool just now? Don't you want to consider joining our ranks and become as awesome as I am?" Hearing this, Lin Kai turned his head away, muttering, "Not cool at all. I am afraid of death, and I have no desire to join your group." Old Zhou, initially intending to say something more to persuade him, was surprised when Lin Kai simply walked away without even looking back. Upon returning to his home, his mind was racing with countless thoughts and reflections. He understood that Old Zhou was undoubtedly backed by a powerful and extensive organization, and while he harbored significant curiosity about what had transpired with himself, he knew that some secrets, once revealed and understood, would forever trap him, making escape utterly impossible. He had no aspirations whatsoever of becoming a hero. He simply wished to wholeheartedly protect the cherished home he currently had. As he drifted into a hazy dream-filled sleep, he found himself once again transported to the psychiatric hospital of his recurring dreams. He proceeded to follow his usual routine within the dream, but this time, to his astonishment, he discovered that the main gate, which had been securely locked for 5 years, was actually open. He cautiously entered the facility and began to explore, continuously examining his surroundings for a short while, until he arrived before a door covered entirely with intricate talismans. Pushing it open, he was utterly astonished to discover that a woman was remarkably present inside. Immediately thereafter, a data panel materialized before his eyes, displaying patient information. The task was clearly stated to assist Nyx in the treatment of her severe mental illness. Once the treatment progress had reached the specified threshold, he would then be able to extract and acquire a portion of Nyx's formidable abilities. Seeing this incredible information, he was utterly dumbfounded, as Nyx was famously one of the 5 primordial creator deities within ancient Greek mythology, and he wondered aloud, could such an incredibly powerful deity also fall ill? Just as he was pondering with profound confusion exactly what kind of affliction this powerful goddess might have, Nyx suddenly turned her gaze directly towards him, and shrieked with startling intensity, "My child, my beloved child, I have finally found you, my good child." Hearing these words, Lin Kai was utterly stunned, as he had been lovingly raised by his aunt since childhood, and genuinely had no recollection of his own biological parents. Could this woman standing before him truly be his biological mother, after all these years? As he stood there completely taken aback and perplexed, Nyx unexpectedly lunged directly towards him with surprising speed. He was just about to extend his arm to embrace her, but to his utter surprise, Nyx completely bypassed him, and instead with a strange gesture, lovingly embraced a flower vase situated behind him, while continuously murmuring to herself, "I have finally found you, my good child." Nyx then rushed over to a nearby table with the same fervor, and continued to repeat the same exact phrases. Witnessing this bizarre behavior, Lin Kai was left utterly speechless and exasperated, realizing after all this time, that she was indeed truly suffering from a mental illness. Suddenly he woke up once again, to the bright and clear light of early morning. How to effectively treat Nyx's condition now became his foremost and most pressing concern. Consequently, he made his way to the hospital, feigning that it was a friend's case. He carefully described Nyx's detailed symptoms to the doctor. The doctor definitively diagnosed Nyx with severe delusional disorder, strongly recommending that inpatient treatment would be the most beneficial course of action. However, Lin Kai's stance remained quite firm and resolute, insisting repeatedly that his friend's financial situation absolutely did not permit hospitalization. So, with no other choice, the doctor reluctantly prescribed a few types of medication for them to try. As he made his way back home, carrying the prescribed medicine, he pondered deeply on how he could possibly bring these medicines into his dream state. Suddenly, old Zhou appeared and blocked his path, causing him to instinctively turn around and immediately flee. But despite his efforts, he was still apprehended by old Zhao. Subsequently, old then escorted him to a love hotel, and without ceremony swiftly threw him onto the bed, just as Lin Kai mentally resigned himself to the perceived loss of his virtue. However, old Zhou unexpectedly broke the silence by inquiring, "Have you already encountered Michael?" Hearing this name, Lin Kai was filled with immediate confusion, and he asked who or what exactly is Michael. Old Zhou calmly and succinctly explained, "That brilliant golden light from yesterday was precisely the energy fluctuation of Michael." He had presumed that Lin Kai's power indicated he had reached the formidable 6th realm, but it turned out he had only just entered the very first realm, a mere beginner. It turned out that humans categorize the forbidden zones based on the fluctuating strength of their mental power, dividing these mystical abilities into 6 distinct major realms or stages. For example, the initial stage, akin to a cup of stagnant water, is small in volume and remains completely still, and this is termed the slashing mirror realm. The first realm of power, like the calm waters of a tranquil pond, abundant yet motionless, represents the next stage, known as the solid mirror realm. The second realm, the river mirror realm, like the dynamic flow of a river, is abundant and constantly flowing with powerful currents, and is designated as the 4th realm. The ocean mirror realm, resembling the vastness of the mighty ocean, is immensely expansive and boundless, and this is identified as the 4th realm. In the ocean mirror realm, spiritual power appears almost infinite and inexhaustible. When spiritual power becomes truly vast and immensely formidable, it signifies the 5th realm, immeasurable. And if one's mental power is truly boundless and perpetually endless, unfathomable and incomprehensible in its usage, breaking through the very fabric of spatial dimensions, resembles the serene and profound clay bottle. The ultimate state, the Klein realm, is the 6th and final stage. Upon hearing all of this, Lin Kai promptly inquired about old Zhao's current power realm or level. After all, old Zhao had been single-handedly defeating ghost-faced beings with each precise slash of his blade back then, which had been undeniably quite impressive and stylish. Old Zhao replied with a sigh, revealing his heartfelt regret that he had not actually awakened a forbidden zone power himself, and that his ability to defeat monsters relied entirely on his extensive combat experience and exceptional martial arts skills. He then elaborated that there were primarily 3 distinct methods for acquiring forbidden zone powers. The first method is simply being born with an innate forbidden zone ability. The second involves utilizing specialized forbidden zone artifacts or items, which can grant such powers. And the third method is through divine bestowal, directly from a god. Certain deities choose to impart a portion of their immense power to select humans, thereby making them their designated representatives or agents on Earth. These chosen agents are also concurrently bound to receive and follow the explicit commands of the deities, thus acting as the direct embodiment of that deity's will and purpose. Among the divine agents discovered so far, by the current count, a significant majority are malevolent entities who actively seek to utterly destroy human society, representing wicked gods who desire to plunge the world back into primeval chaos. These dark entities have even established a formidable organization, known ominously as the Ancient God Church, With a grave and serious expression, old Zhao then directly asked him, "What exactly were the directives given to you by Michael? Which side do you truly belong to?" Upon hearing this, Lin Kai's face displayed a look of profound disdain and dismissiveness, and he retorted, "You have no idea what Michael intends to do. I simply don't know his plans, and even if he were to issue explicit commands, I would refuse to follow them regardless of the consequences. I can always return these eyes to him for all I care." With that resolute declaration, Lin Kai abruptly rose and walked away without further hesitation. He held absolutely no personal interest in the grand mission of saving humanity, finding it entirely unappealing and irrelevant to his life goals. His sole desire was simply to earn a good living for his family, to ensure his aunt would no longer have to toil so arduously, and for his family to simply live a peaceful, stable, and unassuming life together. After returning to his home, he once again entered the familiar psychiatric hospital of his dreams, fully prepared to commence the much-needed treatment for Nyx. Observing Nyx, who was kneeling on the ground and ceaselessly calling out for her child, ultimately he realized she was merely overwhelmed by an intense longing and profound missing of her child. Pondering this insight, he suddenly extended his arms and embraced Nyx tenderly, then softly whispered into her ear with gentle affection, "Mother, I have finally returned home." Nyx's face instantly became streaked with copious tears of joy, and she immediately embraced him tightly in return. Simultaneously, the system displayed that the treatment progress had successfully increased by 3%. Which meant it had already met the necessary conditions for extracting an ability. Immediately, he promptly clicked the extract button on the interface, and the very next second, a luminous rillet wheel materialized out of thin air before him. Subsequently, Nyx then gently bestowed a kiss upon him, and above it the word Starry Night Dancer floated gracefully. With a mixture of doubt and curiosity, he cautiously reached out to grasp it. The moment his hand made contact with the floating words, he felt a profound, transformative power begin to fundamentally reshape his entire being, as if both his soul and his physical body were thoroughly cleansed and renewed. Upon waking the following morning, he experienced for the very first time a truly refreshing and invigorating sense of clarity and well-being. He excitedly left the house and shared the joyful news with his aunt, telling her that he could now clearly see again. Hearing this wonderful revelation, his aunt's face was instantly awash with tears of profound happiness, and his younger brother was so overjoyed that he excitedly danced and gestured wildly with his hands and feet. Upon arriving at school, his classmates were also genuinely happy and celebrated his restored ability to see once again. He felt an immense sense of relief and gratitude, believing he could finally embrace the normalcy of life after so many years of extraordinary struggles. Little did he know, however, that when he returned home later that very evening, he was utterly surprised to find old Zhao, of all people, already present inside his house. Old Zhao casually raised his hand in a familiar gesture, offering Lin Kai a calm greeting. Following his greeting, he deliberately placed a thick stack of banknotes onto the table, a clear gesture of financial offering. Before Lin Kai even had a chance to fully process the unexpected visit or the money, old Zhou immediately began to recount his own personal history, sharing details about his past experiences and motivations. He began by recalling a pivotal, early moment in his life, when he was just 6 years old. His father tragically passed away, leaving his family with a profound void. In order to provide for him and ensure his upbringing, his resilient mother single-handedly undertook the demanding task of working 2 separate jobs, tirelessly striving to make ends meet. As he grew into adulthood, he had the opportunity to choose a secure and stable life, perhaps becoming a respected village official. However, despite his mother's strong objections and heartfelt pleas, he made the courageous and unyielding decision to enlist in the military, embarking on a path of service. Subsequently, through a series of unforeseen circumstances and various complex factors, he ultimately became a member of the formidable Night Watchman organization. Regrettably, from the moment he formally joined the Night Watchman, his demanding duties meant that he had very few opportunities to return home and visit his beloved mother, a significant personal sacrifice. Yet despite the personal cost and the difficult choices he had made, he harbored absolutely no regrets. For he firmly believed that he was carrying a profound and sacred mission to safeguard and protect all of humanity from existential threats. In stark contrast, Lin Kai, driven by his deep desire to remain by his family's side and cherish their presence, had chosen a path diametrically opposed to old Zhao's, prioritizing personal connection over global duty. Old Zhao, reflecting deeply on his own past and the choices he had made, understood Lin Kai's dilemma, and therefore he genuinely wished to offer Lin Kai the substantial sum of money as a gesture of support, so that Lin Kai could properly fulfill his filial duties and ensure his family's well-being. Upon hearing old Zhao's sincere words, Lin Kai, despite his family's needs, firmly and politely refused to accept the money. He confidently stated that since his sight had been miraculously restored, he now possessed the capability to independently provide for his entire family, demonstrating his newfound self-reliance and determination. Sensing Lin Kai's unwavering resolve and pride, old Zhao found himself with little more to say in persuasion. He then prepared to stand up and respectfully take his leave from the household. However, barely a moment after old Zhao had exited the house, his walkie-talkie suddenly crackled to life, relaying an urgent and alarming message that the formidable ghost, Mask King, had been sighted, rapidly advancing towards the old city district. Upon receiving this critical intelligence, old Zhao immediately understood the gravity of the situation and dared not show even the slightest hint of complacency or delay. This was particularly alarming because at this very moment, He found himself directly within the vulnerable old city district, putting him squarely in the path of the approaching danger. As word of the approaching threat quickly spread among the night watchmen, their primary objective shifted to swiftly and systematically evacuating and dispersing civilians from the danger zone, precisely as old Zhao, holding a crucial warning sign, was making his way back towards Lin Kai's securely gated community. A putrid, unmistakable stench of decaying flesh suddenly assailed his senses, emanating directly from a nearby source. He immediately cast his gaze towards a nearby manhole cover, from beneath which unsettling wisps of dark, ominous gas were visibly rising. With a grim realization, he understood that he had ironically won the lottery, having stumbled directly upon the monstrous entity. Without hesitation, he immediately reported his grim discovery over the walkie-talkie, providing his precise location. He quickly learned from the commanding voice on the other end of the walkie-talkie that he was to proceed with extreme caution. The voice urgently advised him to avoid engaging the Ghost Mask King in direct, head-on combat, stressing that a frontal assault against such a formidable foe would be an almost certain path to defeat. This caution was particularly crucial because old Zhao, unlike some others, had not yet awakened his own void power, a powerful psychic ability. Without such innate abilities, confronting the Ghost Mask King directly meant he would face almost insurmountable odds, with virtually no chance of victory. His primary objective was simply to stall the monster, to hold it at bay for a mere 10 minutes, allowing sufficient time for the main reinforcement teams to arrive and secure the area. He glanced back at the brightly illuminated residential community behind him, its lights twinkling peacefully. He knew Lin Kai was likely still inside, enjoying a precious family dinner, oblivious to the encroaching danger. Old Zhao understood with grim clarity that the fate of the community rested on his shoulders. If he failed to halt the Ghost Mask King's advance right then and there, in merely 5 short minutes, this entire residential area and its unsuspecting inhabitants would be utterly annihilated. With this dark realization weighing heavily on his mind, he made a decisive choice. With a powerful, almost desperate motion, he reversed his grip on the warning sign and thrust it forcefully into the ground. At that very instant, the Ghost Mask King, disturbed by the intrusion into its domain, roared in apparent pain and rage. Violently bursting forth from beneath the earth, its grotesque form emerged into the open. As the monstrous Ghost Mask King lunged directly at him, its terrifying form hurtling through the air, old Zhao, without a moment's hesitation, swiftly drew his blade, ready to confront the formidable beast. Immediately after, he activated his specialized ability, the Boundless Void Zone, a personal combat arena, effectively concealing their impending battle from any external observation, ensuring no one outside could perceive the unfolding conflict. Concurrently, as this high-stakes battle was being contained, Lin Kai remained peacefully at home, completely unaware of the raging conflict outside, still enjoying his evening meal with his family. His attention was suddenly drawn by his dog, Little Black, who was barking incessantly and wildly from the balcony. Concerned by the unusual behavior, Lin Kai walked over to the balcony to gently comfort Little Black, trying to ascertain the cause of its distress. To his surprise, he noticed the peculiar warning sign that old Zhao had erected, clearly indicating the activation of the Boundless Void Zone. Recognizing the significance of the sign, he quickly excused himself from his aunt and bolted out the door, compelled by a sense of urgency. Within the concealed confines of the Boundless Void Zone, at this critical juncture, old Zhao was visibly and gravely injured, his body thoroughly covered in blood, indicating a brutal and ongoing struggle. Despite the excruciating pain and the knowing uncertainty of how much longer he could possibly endure the relentless assault, he exhibited an extraordinary level of composure and unwavering resolve, betraying not the slightest hint of panic. With a calm, defiant gesture, he lit a cigarette, inhaling deeply before exhaling a slow plume of smoke. Then, with renewed determination, he bravely charged back towards the formidable Ghost Mask King. In an instant, the sharp, metallic clang of blades echoed through the air, creating a continuous, brutal symphony of combat. At last, after a grueling exchange of blows, he skillfully managed to create an opening, allowing him to position himself strategically behind the massive Ghost Mask King. He then unleashed a powerful, decisive thrust of his blade, aiming for a critical blow. Alas, the colossal disparity in their power levels, their respective realms of strength, proved to be an insurmountable obstacle. His blade, despite its force, simply failed to penetrate the monster's incredibly tough hide, leaving him vulnerable. The Ghost Mask King, reacting with astonishing speed, whirled around and delivered a devastating backhand blow, sending old Zhao flying through the air. In the very next moment, as old Zhao reeled from the impact, the Ghost Mask King let out a terrifying roar, revealing its true power. To old Zhao's shock, the Ghost Mask King surprisingly unleashed its own Forbidden Zone ability. This particular power was called Ghost Face Confrontation. It possessed the terrifying ability to warp and invert space within its effective radius, creating a disorienting effect, instantly deceiving the senses and perceptions of any living being caught within its distorted domain. Old Zhao immediately felt a profound sense of disorientation, his head swimming with dizziness, and his vision blurring uncontrollably. His heightened senses, which normally allowed him to perceive threats, were completely overridden, rendering him unable to anticipate attacks. The Ghost Mask King's devastating attack was rapidly closing in on him, bearing down with immense force. Overwhelmed by the sensory distortion, he instinctively plunged his blade deep into the ground, using it as an anchor to forcefully stabilize himself amidst the disorienting illusion. He desperately forced himself to maintain composure, fighting against the chaos in his mind. As he battled the disorientation, he strained his senses, attempting to predict precisely where the Ghost Mask King's next attack would strike. Just as the Ghost Mask King coiled for a final decisive strike, clearly intending to deliver a fatal blow, Old Zhao, with a sudden, astonishing burst of clarity and timing, abruptly spun around, raising his blade just in time to deflect the monster's attack. Seizing this precise, fleeting moment of opportunity, he launched himself high into the air with a powerful, desperate leap, aiming for a critical weakness. He brought his blade down with full force, aiming directly for the Ghost Mask King's neck, but to his utter shock, the weapon became firmly lodged, unable to penetrate further. In the immediate aftermath, the enraged Ghost Mask King retaliated with a massive, crushing fist, sending Old Zhao flying several meters away with brute force. With immense effort and visible pain, he slowly and painstakingly managed to push himself up from the ground. He then reached into his uniform, pulling out a distinctive, inscribed emblem or badge. As he held it, he murmured softly to himself, his voice laced with a grim determination. "It appears the time has finally come," he whispered, acknowledging the necessity of his last resort. It was then revealed that this emblem held a hidden, profound significance. This very badge was not only a proud symbol of the Night Watchman organization, but also a representation of their ultimate sacrifice. It also served a far more critical function. It represented their absolute last, most desperate resort. For when activated, it allowed a Night Watchman to ignite their own life force, consuming it in a final, powerful surge, to forcefully awaken or boost their void powers to an unprecedented level in their final moments. However, the use of this artifact was strictly forbidden unless under the most dire and absolutely unavoidable circumstances. It was a power that was never to be employed lightly, as it came at the ultimate cost. Suddenly, from just beyond the invisible barrier created by the warning sign, furious pounding sounds reverberated, accompanied by an increasingly frantic voice. "Zhao Kongqing," a voice shouted, referring to Old Zhou's full name. "I know you're in there." The voice continued, filled with a desperate plea. "Quick me in." It was Lin Kai, his voice growing increasingly frantic and desperate, urging Old Zhao to open the barrier. Upon recognizing Lin Kai's voice and understanding his intentions, Old Zhou immediately and firmly refused his entry. "You little brat," Old Zhao retorted, his voice stern despite the casual address, "hurry home and eat your dinner." He stressed the formidable nature of the enemy. "This is the Ghost Mask King we're fighting, not just a regular ghost masked man." Highlighting the vast difference in their power and threat level. "It's 2 entire realms above your current power level, kid. You can rest assured without a shadow of a doubt," he continued, attempting to soothe Lin Kai's fears. "As long as I, Zhao Kongqing, stand here, this monstrosity will not lay a single hand on your family, nor will it harm a single hair on their heads." Having delivered his solemn vow, he pulled out the emblem, his final resort, and with grim determination, plunged it fiercely into his own neck, activating its devastating power. In that very instant, his entire aura violently surged, an explosive ascent of power. His awakened forbidden zone power pulsed and shimmered with intense, raw energy, manifesting his ultimate sacrifice. With a seemingly effortless, almost casual flick of his blade, a stark contrast to his previous struggles, he deftly cleaved off the Ghost Masked King's massive arm, which fell to the ground with a sickening thud. As he watched the Ghost Masked King writhe in agonizing pain from its grievous injury, Old Zhao, now radiating with a fierce red glow from his activated power, let out a triumphant, almost manic laugh. "I knew it," he roared, his voice resonating with a final, desperate pride. "I always knew that I, Zhao Kongqing, was a damn genius all along." Witnessing Old Zhao's terrifying surge of power, the Ghost Masked King, in a desperate attempt to regain control, once again activated its Forbidden Zone, a Ghost Face ability, distorting the very fabric of the space around Old Zhao, attempting to ensnare him within a world of illusion and confusion. However, the Old Zhao of this moment, now infused with the ultimate power of his sacrifice, was starkly different from his previous self. The disparity between his former self and his current, awakened state was as vast as the difference between heaven and earth. At this precise moment, with a powerful, focused swing of his blade, the Ghost Face illusion, which sought to ensnare him, was directly confronted. And it shattered effortlessly, as if it were nothing more than a fragile mirror, revealing the true reality beneath. Without a moment's pause, he clutched his blade firmly and aggressively charged directly at the Ghost Masked King, intent on pressing his advantage. One could only see the formidable red blade, imbued with Old Zhao's life force, cutting deeply across the Ghost Masked King's tough hide, inflicting serious wounds. The monster recoiled, letting out a guttural, agonizing roar of pure pain as it was finally wounded. Suddenly Old Zhao's movements became rigid, his body faltering as if hit by an invisible force. Seeing this sudden moment of vulnerability, the Ghost Masked King wasted no time, delivering a powerful punch that sent Old Zhao sprawling several meters away, giving him no chance to recover or express triumph. In the immediate aftermath, its arm, already gravely injured from Old Zhao's attack, fragmented into grotesque pieces of flesh. Old Zhao struggled to his feet, his mouth filling with blood, which he then forcefully spat onto the ground, indicating severe internal injuries. "I didn't anticipate the after effects would be this intense," he mumbled, grimacing from the pain. "It's fine," he affirmed. "I'm still very much alive despite this. And I can still fight." With a tremendous effort, he slowly but deliberately pulled himself back onto his feet, ready for more combat, fully prepared to engage the monstrous Ghost Masked King in a final, decisive battle to the death. Just then, with an explosive sound, the spatial barrier of the boundless void zone, which had concealed their battle, violently shattered. Old Zhao stared in utter disbelief, his eyes wide with shock and confusion at the sudden breach. How did you manage to get inside?" he stammered, unable to comprehend the impossible feat. Lin Kai, with a calm and almost nonchalant gesture, lightly ran a hand through his hair, a subtle sign of his newly found confidence. "I merely cast a piercing glance at the barrier," he explained simply, "and it simply yielded, opening before me." The true reason for this astonishing feat was that, coincidentally, he had activated his Starry Night Dancer ability precisely as twilight descended, aligning with the celestial conditions. This confluence of events allowed the formidable divine power of the Seraph within him to effortlessly tear apart the seemingly impenetrable barrier, as Lin Kai moved forward, stepping confidently into the shattered space, fully prepared to join forces with Old Zhao and collectively subdue the monstrous foe. Old Zhao, however, suddenly raised his blood-soaked blade, defiantly blocking Lin Kai's path forward. He insisted that Lin Kai simply stand aside and witness him finish off the enemy himself, a testament to his unwavering pride. Yet Lin Kai, with his enhanced sight, instantly perceived the true, devastating extent of Old Zhao's injury as his bones and meridians throughout his body were shattered. Each shattered bone, each severed meridian, a testament to the brutal fight. His vital internal organs were severely fractured and ruptured, a sign of irreversible damage. Old Zhao, clenching his jaw in sheer defiance, spoke with a strained voice. "Just one more strike," he insisted, his voice unwavering despite his critical condition. "Let me land one final blow. Once this last strike is delivered, you can then assist me without any reservations, as it won't diminish my honor." "Kid," he addressed Lin Kai, his voice filled with a profound sense of purpose. "Pay close attention to this next move," he urged, "for it will be truly unforgettable. This final slash will be incredibly cool." His activated Forbidden Zone power pulsed and shimmered with an intense, radiant light, manifesting his ultimate sacrifice. With a single mighty swing, a colossal, crescent-shaped crimson energy wave erupted forth. Striking with devastating force, it decapitated the Ghost Mask King, sending its massive head tumbling to the ground. Immediately after delivering this final, powerful blow, Old Zhao, his life force utterly spent, fell forward, collapsing heavily and directly onto the ground. With his last vestiges of strength, he managed to weakly raise the emblem high into the air, a faint serene smile gracing his lips as he whispered his last words. "Before I fully succumb to old age and fade away," he mused, a hint of satisfaction in his voice, "I finally got to truly experience the immense power of the Forbidden Zone firsthand. I did it," he whispered, a final declaration echoing his heroic stand. My blade pointed bravely towards the blood-stained, vast expanse of the sky. Lin Kai, watching this profound sacrifice, felt an overwhelming wave of grief wash over him, and tears streamed uncontrollably down his face. "That slash you just made," he choked out through his tears, "was incredibly spectacular. More impressive and cooler than anything I have ever witnessed from anyone, ever. Please could you possibly teach me how to do that?" However, before Lin Kai could even complete his heartfelt plea, Old Zhao's body finally went still. He had completely and permanently lost all signs of life. In that solemn moment, amidst the shattered landscape, Lin Kai stood vigil, solemnly guarding Old Zhao's fallen body, a silent tribute to his sacrifice. Just then, a grotesque and horrifying development occurred. The Ghost Mask King's severed head suddenly burst open, and a hideous, crimson spider-like creature crawled out from within its decaying remains, its multi-legged form wriggling free from the monstrous skull. Yet Lin Kai remained tragically unaware of this new, lurking threat. For at that very moment his attention was solely fixed on the fallen hero. Lin Kai was still murmuring to himself, his voice thick with sorrow and remorse, a deep lament. "I am a person who absolutely cannot tolerate owing anyone a favor, especially one so profound. You, Old Zhao, saved my entire world, my family, everything I hold dear." Yet he continued, a note of despair entering his voice. "What, in return, could I possibly do for you now that you are gone?" As this profound realization settled within him, a fierce resolve hardened in his eyes. He reached down and, with a solemn gesture, pulled Old Zhao's blood-stained blade from the ground. As he straightened, his eyes blazed with a fierce, ethereal golden light, a manifestation of his awakening power. He then turned his gaze towards the Ghost Mask King, which, impossibly, was now regenerating and beginning to rise again, empowered by the extraordinary speed and agility granted by his Starry Night Dancer ability. In that critical moment, Lin Kai transformed into a blur of motion, moving with a ghostly, almost ethereal swiftness. He continuously weaved and dodged, effortlessly evading the Ghost Mask King's relentless attacks. After evading dozens upon dozens of the monster's powerful, desperate lunges, his expression was grim and resolute, his face now devoid of any youthful fear, replaced by a cold determination. He raised the blade, and with a swift, powerful thrust, aimed directly at its concealed weakness, directing his attack towards the sinister entity that was secretly dwelling within the Ghost Mask King's form. The crimson spider that had emerged from its shattered head, which he now knew to be the true host. For he finally understood that this vile creature was the monster's actual, vulnerable core, its true form. Realizing that a single strike would not be enough to eradicate this resilient core, he launched into a relentless, furious assault, furiously stabbing the blade into the spider's form 10 times, then 20, his blade ablur as he delivered hundreds, then thousands of rapid, furious thrusts. As he witnessed the monstrous core visibly beginning to break apart and collapse under his relentless assault, he gathered every ounce of his remaining strength and focused it into one ultimate, devastating final strike. In that instant, a blinding explosion of pure golden light erupted from him, enveloping the creature. And with that final, powerful burst, the Ghost Mask King's true core utterly disintegrated, vanishing without a trace. Having completed his brutal, vengeful task, he carefully retrieved Old Zaw's now legendary blade, a symbol of immense sacrifice. He then sullenly secured it to his own body, accepting the mantle of responsibility and legacy. With a heavy heart, he gently lifted Old Zaw's lifeless body, carefully placing it onto his back. His face etched with unwavering determination and profound grief, he made a solemn, binding vow. "You," he declared, his voice resolute, "saved my entire world, everything I hold dear. As a solemn exchange for your world, the one you fought so valiantly to protect, I pledge to stand guard over it, in your stead, for the next 10 years. After an indeterminate and arduous journey, his steps heavy with purpose and sorrow, the other members of the Night Watchman finally arrived at the scene, their faces etched with shock and disbelief, as they witnessed Old Zaw's lifeless body being carried by Lin Kai. Each and every one of them stood frozen in place, utterly stunned into silence by the devastating sight of their fallen comrade. Lin Kai's tears, now indistinguishable from the falling rain, streamed ceaselessly down his face, a raw expression of his profound grief. Gathering every last ounce of strength and emotion he possessed, he looked up towards the heavens, his voice raw with sorrow yet booming with respect, and cried out, "Your junior, Lin Kai, bids farewell to General Zhao Kongqing. May your return be a triumphant one, General." The following day, as the city began to process the night's tragic events, within the somber confines of the Night Watchman's headquarters, Lin Kai meticulously recounted the entire, harrowing sequence of events leading to Old Zaw's heroic death in battle. He then solemnly declared his true identity, revealing that he was the appointed spokesman or agent of the Seraph Michael, and expressed his earnest desire to officially join the ranks of the Night Watchman organization. Upon hearing this unexpected declaration, Shi Nian, one of the leading figures, thoughtfully considered his words. He then broke the silence, speaking with a measured tone. "Understand that joining the Night Watchman is no small commitment. It demands profound dedication. It entails undergoing extremely rigorous and demanding training, pushing you to your absolute limits. Are you truly prepared for the immense challenges and sacrifices that lie ahead?" Lin Kai, his face etched with unwavering resolve, solemnly nodded his head in affirmation. "I am absolutely prepared," he declared, his voice firm and unwavering. For the foreseeable future, as his training was about to begin, he was informed that he would be residing at the home of Captain Hom Ying, his new leader, for the duration of his training. Lin Kai, thinking of his family, arranged to receive a full year's salary in advance, and entrusted a comrade to personally deliver the substantial sum to his beloved aunt, ensuring her financial security. Not long after, he received a call from his aunt, her voice filled with a mixture of concern and gratitude. After gently reassuring her and explaining the necessity of his new path, ensuring she understood his decision, he once again found himself transported back to the desolate, recurring mental asylum within his dreams. Nix, observing his visibly dejected and troubled demeanor, noted his profound melancholy. With a thoughtful gesture, she proposed giving him her own personal bracelet as a comforting gift. However, as she extended her hand to retrieve it, she was surprised to find that the bracelet was no longer there. After pondering for a considerable time, her memories slowly piecing together, Nix finally recalled that her bracelet had been taken by a young girl, no older than 12 or 13 years old, who had somehow led her away. She explained that the girl had acquired it during a friendly competition between the two of them, and as the creator, she herself had, surprisingly, lost the challenge. As a result of her defeat, she had honorably given the bracelet to the girl as a prize. Upon hearing this astonishing revelation, Lin Kai's face registered pure shock and disbelief, a wave of profound surprise washing over him. "Are you implying," he stammered, "that other people have managed to enter this surreal mental asylum before me?" Nick simply nodded her head in confirmation, affirming his suspicion. "Yes, that's correct," she affirmed. She seemed quite impatient, if I recall correctly. Driven by this new and intriguing piece of information, Lin Kai immediately headed directly to the director's office within the Dream Hospital, hoping to uncover any further clues or information about this mysterious previous visitor. At last, after a thorough search, he discovered a handwritten letter hidden beneath the desk, clearly left behind by the mysterious young girl. The letter stated that the bracelet was merely borrowed for a temporary period, and included a simple farewell goodbye for now, promising that it would eventually be returned to Nix. The letter also contained a surprising detail, mentioning that this particular mental asylum housed a secret underground space. Following the cryptic instructions provided in the letter, Lin Kai ventured to this hidden area and discovered that the underground space was, astonishingly, a formidable prison. To his utter shock, he saw none other than the very ghost, Mask King he had personally defeated and killed, now confined within a cell, its monstrous form inexplicably trapped within the prison's confines. Lin Kai's face registered profound confusion, his brow furrowed in bewilderment, as he stared at the imprisoned ghost Mask King, struggling to understand its presence here. At that moment, a translucent system panel materialized before his eyes, offering a detailed explanation. As the ghost Mask King was a mythical creature personally vanquished by your own hands, the panel began to explain. You now possess the extraordinary right to determine the ultimate fate of its very soul. You have two choices before you. You can directly and completely annihilate its soul, ensuring its utter and permanent eradication from existence. You can compel its fear of you to reach a threshold of 60 points. Upon reaching this level of fear, you can employ it as a mental hospital orderly, tasked with caring for the other patients. And simultaneously, It will offer you a certain degree of personal protection and assistance within the hospital's confines. Current fear value 1. Upon finishing reading this intricate explanation, Lin Kai's mind finally grasped the astonishing capabilities of the mental asylum. He now realized that this peculiar mental hospital possessed an extraordinary hidden function. He understood that any mythical creature he personally vanquished in the waking world could have its soul captured and imprisoned within the hospital to be utilized for his own purposes. This led him to a daring speculation: if he were to somehow defeat and kill a true, powerful deity, would the same principle apply, allowing him to capture and control their essence as well? Abruptly, his profound contemplation was shattered. A guttural, terrifying roar from the imprisoned ghost Masked King violently interrupted his thoughts, dragging him back to the present. Without hesitation, he unleashed a powerful surge of his own divine seraphic power, emanating from within him. The ghost Masked King, overwhelmed by the sheer force of this divine aura, instantly recoiled in terror and involuntarily crumpled to its knees before him. Despite the ghost Masked King's undeniable power and formidable strength, which made it seemingly very suitable for the role of a hospital orderly, offering practical benefits, Lin Kai simply harbored a deep personal dislike for the monstrous entity, a visceral aversion he couldn't ignore. Therefore, with a resolute expression, Lin Kai slowly raised his hand and placed it firmly upon the ghost Masked King's monstrous head. As a brilliant burst of golden light erupted from his touch, consuming the creature in its radiance. From that moment forward, the mythical creature known as the ghost Masked King ceased to exist, utterly erased from the world. The very next morning, as a new day dawned, Lin Kai arrived at the designated martial arts training hall, ready to commence his intensive, month-long specialized training regimen. The captain of the night watchman casually tossed a simple blade towards him, informing him that he would only be granted his own personalized weapon, his official night watchman blade, once he had successfully passed this rigorous special training. Until that time, he was to use this specific one. As Lin Kai gazed down at the blade resting in his hand, a wave of familiar emotion washed over him. He couldn't help but feel a profound surge of sorrow and poignant grief, for he recognized it immediately. It was old Zio's very own, distinctive blade. Sensing Lin Kai's somber realization, the captain offered a clarifying explanation, stating, "You are